Welcome to FOBtv, the future of business. I'm your host, Kevin Benedict. I'm a futurist here at TCS, and I want to thank all of you for joining the show today. I'm really excited to introduce our guest today, Joel Carson. Joel, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin.
Now, Joel is the executive director at Geoprofessional Business Association, which is super cool, and the members are super cool. And I've had the opportunity to spend some time learning from them in the past. So, Joel, why don't you just share with us what is Geoprofessional Business Association and give us a little view into what kinds of people are members of your association?
Great. Well, GBA, the Geoprofessional Business Association, is a group of engineers, geologists, and scientists that work in the natural and built environments. And so for more than 50 years, GBA has been helping our members to confront risk, optimize business performance. In short, we help engineers, good engineers and geologists, to be great consultants, great at business.
Awesome.
Teaching us all about business-related issues that we didn't learn in school. I'm an engineer, and I didn't learn about issues about P&L statements and HR and business development and marketing in school. And so GBA exists to help our members to understand business and just to be great at business.
That's fascinating, actually. So they go and they get credentialed and they learn how to do all the science and the engineering and the math. But then how do you go out there in the world and actually deliver business proposition?
Yeah, there's a lot of associations out there, professional associations and societies that help engineers to be better at engineering, to keep them current on engineering processes and technologies. But GBA is really unique in that we help engineers to be better at business.
We have to talk a lot more about that. But before we dive into that, where are you dialing in from today?
Well, I'm dialing in from beautiful Donnelly, Idaho. It's a small little community about 90 miles north of our capital city, Boise, Idaho. We're located in the Long Valley, they call it. I get to call this my home and my office. And so it's a delight to talk to you today from Donnelly, Idaho.
Oh, that's awesome. So walk us through an average day of your members. So there's engineers and everything. What kinds of things would they be doing on a regular basis as part of their job? And that will set the context for our discussion about the future here.
Yeah, so first I'd like to talk about our membership. Our membership is based on companies, and we have about 200 companies that have chosen to be a part of our association. Those 200 companies represent over 100,000 employees that practice in the geoprofessions. Most of them are in North America, but many of them have employees outside of North America, so we truly have a global reach. And before we talk about what the average day in the life of a GBA member is, maybe we ought to break it down on what is a geoprofessional, because it's not a term that's commonly known to everyone. Geoprofessional refers to various technical disciplines that involve engineering, earth, and environmental services that are applied to below ground, so subsurface, the ground surface, and then anything that's connected to the earth. And so some of those principal disciplines of geoprofessionals are geotechnical engineering, geology, geological engineering, geophysics, which relies on a lot of technology, environmental science and environmental engineering. And then our members also provide construction observation, testing and inspection of construction materials. So it's a very diverse field that's covered under that umbrella, geoprofessional. It's really hard to define what a typical day of a geoprofessional is, but much of what the services that our members provide have to do with pre-designed services. So Kevin, you think about this, your home, your office, your bank, your church, the airports and the hotels that you frequent around the world, all those structures, and then all the accompanying infrastructure that supports those structures requires some sort of an assessment before they're designed and constructed. And so this means geoprofessionals need to assess the historic land use, drill into the soil and collect soil and rock samples, evaluate the groundwater, so that we can help in the design for bearing capacity of foundation systems, to analyze the environmental quality where those structures are going to be built. So a lot of work is done by geoprofessionals before a project is even designed and way before it's constructed.
So it sounds to me that there's a lot of information and data gathering, a lot of testing done, and somehow that has to be put together and reported to somebody. And probably turned in as part of a package for permits and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, for pre-design permits, permitting, and then designing what a foundation system might look like, or what cleanup. So you're right. There's copious amounts of data that are gathered on a daily basis by geoprofessionals in support of design and eventually construction. And it's not just buildings, it's roads, it's bridges, it's water treatment plants and transmission lines, pipelines. So almost every man-built structure requires some sort of assessment before it's built. And so, I often refer to geoprofessionals as unsung heroes, because all this work's done before the architects and the constructors actually get to erect buildings on sites.
Now, you spent most of your career out in the field as an engineer yourself, haven't you?
I did. I have a unique background as the executive director of this association, in that I bring more than 25 years as a practicing consultant to this position. So that's really unique also, in that I have a real life perspective on what our members do on a daily basis. And so I can commiserate with them on challenges of utilization, of client issues, on HR and personnel issues. But I can also celebrate with them what tremendous value that they bring to the world every day, just by making the world a little bit healthier, a little bit safer. And so it's nice to be able to marry those two together for our members.
And so with that experience, you and I have had a chance to talk over the months and years since generative AI has really kind of changed the world. Talk to us about where you see the role and the value of generative AI for some of the scenarios that your members are involved in on a regular basis.
Yeah, so this is, not just to geoprofessionals, but the last couple of years with generative AI have been really transformative, somewhat a disruptor, but also great opportunities. So it's still a little bit new to all of us in the geoprofessions, but as we learn more, we start discovering more uses for it. And so for a while now, we've been using generative AI for text creation, and that helps in efforts like documenting client communications, summarizing content, preparing business documents. Right now we're starting to use it to create documents, to take some of that data, all that amount of data, and somehow organize it so that we can leverage it for our calculations, and in some cases, creating software to perform those calculations that are often done, that have traditionally been done in other more laborious ways. And so, it's a very dynamic time right now for everyone. And what I really appreciate is that engineers who have traditionally been hard to adopt new technologies are now applying their curiosity, their natural curiosity, and then their need for problem solving using these tools that are now becoming more available.
One of the things that us as futurists are always talking about is that the future is not one thing changing. It's a convergence of many factors across various domains. And as an example, science, technology, geopolitics, societal issues, and economic issues, it's like from those 5 domains, and we could add more, environmental and philosophical, all those things come together to form our future. And just because something changes in technology does not mean everything else changes instantly. It might follow 5 years later, 10 years later. Let me just ask you, when you look at your community, your members there, how would you best describe them? Are they early adopters? Are they enthusiastic? Are they disinterested? Or are they cautious about these kinds of changes?
So I laugh a little bit, Kevin, because engineers, this is a group of people that had a hard time transitioning from slide rules to calculators, from typewriters to PCs, from your history, from using clipboards to using tablets. And so traditionally, it's been slow adoption. But what's really refreshing is, again, that sense of curiosity, that sense of professionalism, and always looking for different ways to solve problems. And so it's kind of a balancing act. So I wouldn't call us early adopters by any means.
Wow.
We're moving from slide rules to calculators here.
That's awesome. So what are your members using it for today? How do you see that changing 5 years from now? And where do you think, given just the little view into what generative AI is capable of today, where do you think we might be in 10 years from now within your industry?
Well, there's a lot of questions built into that, but I'll start where we are today. So we are slowly starting to adopt AI. And some of the areas that we're doing that are in site characterizations, foundation assessments, pile capacity, piles driven into the ground and their capacity and settlement associated with those. Slope stability. A lot of our members are dealing with contamination. And so there's fate and transport models of contaminants as they're defined and then as they're remediated. Ground improvement, landslides and prediction of landslides. So there are some early adoptions now. I think that some of the opportunities that I see, if we're to look further ahead, I was talking to one of our members this morning who was in a laboratory taking the samples that were collected in the field yesterday from a drill rig. And so he was looking at samples that came from 50, 60 feet into the ground. And one of the things that we do to start is to visually characterize those. Now, I've been familiar with other AI applications where you can simply take a picture of a wildflower and it'll tell you what wildflower that is.
Yeah.
So I do see a world where we will be adopting more and more AI to conduct our studies. Another really cool application that you probably have on your phone is the one where you point it up at the sky and it tells you what the constellations are.
I love it.
I think stargazers are awesome. But wouldn't it be cool if you could equally point that down into the ground and identify buried conduit. Maybe this exists, I just don't know about it yet, but also different soil stratigraphies or groundwater layers. And so I just think we're scratching the surface of how geoprofessionals and the public can use AI.
Oh, yeah, because not only is there the collection and kind of the data gathering, there's the analysis, there's writing all the reports that are the result of what you discover with those things too. And that kind of leads us in as a good segue to my next question here, which is all about sensors and the Internet of Things and drones, all these different ways of collecting data from the field. And I can imagine that will have a big impact on your members' businesses over time.
And it already has, yeah. So many times we're assessing very large parcels of property for big developments or linear properties for pipelines or transmission lines. And these are often in very remote locations. Another example is large landslides. And so either the size or the location or sometimes the risk associated with those requires now the use of drones gives us an opportunity to do preliminary assessments on those large or linear or dangerous sites without sending personnel. Traditionally, surveyors and in some cases geoprofessionals would get on horseback to evaluate a long pipeline. And now we can do all of that with the use of drones.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Now, I was reading recently all about hyperspectral imaging and the ability to look at the smell or the chemical fingerprint or profile that somebody could be wearing certain kinds of perfume, and that gives off a chemical profile that could be picked up using hyperspectral imaging. And then it just blows me away the kind of data that can be collected if you have the right kinds of sensors out there.
Yeah. And that technology has been available, but it's been available in the laboratory. And so a lot of our chemical analysis of soils and groundwater and air have been done in a laboratory setting. And I, like you, have heard that those are now becoming available as remote sensors.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be a game changer also, because the time to data shrinks significantly. Instead of carefully taking a sample from 50 feet underground and bringing it to a lab, now you might be able to send something down into that hole and collect the same or better data.
Oh, man. So, we have what's called a convergence model, which we're watching about 400 to 500 different signals and trends, if you would, out there. So we watch these very intently, these 400 or so. Now, your members also have all kinds of technologies that are specific to your work. So what's the biggest challenge for your members around emerging technologies? Is it resistance to change? Is it they're too busy to be exposed to these things? Or, what is the obstacle that prevents the early adoption of these kinds of technologies?
Yeah, so I think part of it's just keeping up, because change is happening so quickly and we're all very busy. So that's one of the challenges. Technology is often very expensive, and so that is a challenge as well. I think, again, the biggest challenge, though, is the shifting of our mindset. It's an industry that doesn't adopt new things quickly. And however, I've just been really impressed by our members of GBA. They've been curious about AI. They want to learn about it. And then I think that curiosity matched with their need to solve problems is going to be the segue into the adoption of technology. So I'm very optimistic about it.
That's terrific. So let's put on our futurist hats. Of course, I already had mine on, but let's have you put on a futurist hat. So what does the future, the geoprofessional industry, if you would, your membership, what does it look like? If we project ourselves out there 10 years, how do you think the work they do and their routines will look different?
Yeah, that's a question I ask myself all the time as the executive director of an association that's helping our members to skate to where the puck is, the Gretzky line.
Yeah.
And so in order to answer that, I often see what are the biggest challenges that I see coming up in 10 years. And something we haven't talked about is the pipeline of geoprofessionals, engineers, and geologists coming out of school, and those that are choosing this, I think, a very honorable profession. And that on top of the continued need for new development, and also to upgrade our existing infrastructure system, which regularly receives failing grades when it's evaluated. So this lower pipeline of engineers and a higher demand. Our backlog for our members is at an all-time high right now. We just don't have enough people to do all the work. And so I think anybody considering the geoprofessions that might be listening to this, there's a great future in this. But it also requires that we adopt technology that's going to help us to do more with less.
Yeah.
I think it's also going to require, so technology plays a big part in that.
Yeah.
You know, all those opportunities that we've talked about and some we haven't talked about, it is going to help us to do more with less and probably a higher quality. I think that the future of the geoprofessions is not necessarily going to rely solely on engineers and geologists, that engineering companies, geoprofessional consulting companies need to identify and hire candidates that can support us in technology advances. Okay. Still rely on engineers for engineering judgment, but look for other support to help us to accomplish our goals, which are to make the world a safer place, to make it healthier and more comfortable for everyone.
Oh, yeah. So we talked about it earlier that the future is not one thing or a handful of things. It's the convergence of lots of different trends over many domains. One of those domains, societal, tells us that, you know, not only is there everybody's having fewer babies, but there's fewer working age people available. And with fewer babies coming, that pipeline of humanity is getting smaller. At the same time, our older population is increasing dramatically. So less help, you know, more older people, fewer younger people coming up the pipeline. All of this pushes for automation, as you just, society, you know, across society. So it's not just engineering, but you are seeing it very, you know, you see it within your own industry, but it's one of those societal things that we're all going to have to deal with. And it's kind of coming together at the same time as we have these sensors and these digital twins and these ability to collect data, share it globally, all at the same time. And then we're layering intelligence on top of that and machine learning so we can learn how to do things from remote locations. All of this suggests that automation is going to play a bigger and bigger role in all of our careers and in our personal lives as well, just to continue to, you know, maintain the quality of life that we have today. So it's going to be super interesting with that.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more on all those points, in addition to higher demand.
Yes, absolutely. Well, the world's going to be an interesting place. There's lots of work for engineers and geoprofessionals, guys. So geoprofessional.org.
That's correct, Kevin. Geoprofessional.org.
Okay, go there to get more information on it or learn about this career and all that fun stuff. With that, I'm going to thank you so much, Joel, for joining us today and sharing your expertise and knowledge and the awesome environment that your members get to work in and the work they do every day to keep us safe. Thank you, Joel.
Thank you, Kevin. I really appreciate your partnership and all the ways that you've tried to keep me an engineer current on technology. And this is just another way. So thank you very much. Appreciate your support.